My next guest is the filmmaker behind The War on Children. This is a film about the manner in which far-left activists have targeted children, how they indoctrinate them, guilt and groom them, and even punish them until they submit to woke ideology.
This is what you don't want kids to see, is that correct?
Exactly.
And again, this is depicting children. This is supposed to be kids.
Well, honestly, I didn't even know that transition from female to male was an option until I was on social media and began being exposed to those type of communities.
You've never seen an 18-month-old masturbating?
No, I haven't. Have you seen any sexually explicit drag shows marketed as all ages for kids that you would denounce or think that are a problem and that you want to distance yourself from?
No.
You know this is wrong.
So, I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to end the interview.
Your daughter was secretly transitioned at school.
This policy has to do with children as young as 5 all the way through high school.
Penthouse footed the bill to lobby before state boards of education. Yes, Penthouse and Playboy. The history behind this is far darker than most Americans understand.
Joining me now is host of the Robbie Starbuck Show and filmmaker, Robbie Starbuck. Robbie, last week your film had clocked up more than 47 million views. Tell me what you hope to achieve with the film The War on Children.
Well, we far surpassed what I hope to achieve. I hope to get the truth out there, and this has kind of exploded into one of the most watched documentaries of all time. I mean, it's few and far between documentaries that even get 1 million views, let alone we're closing in on 50 million. You know, so the goal though was to wake up parents to what is going on and grandparents to what is going on, because there's so many people asleep at the wheel who don't realize that there is a mass operation to sexualize children and to fundamentally change the values of the next generation. Because the people in power, the elitists that are essentially running the planet, they need these young people to buy into this modern communist ideology.
Now, your film is a truly harrowing insight into how wokeness or so-called liberalism is affecting children. Let's have a look at a brief compilation from the film.
There is misinformation presented that somehow that we're doing surgery on minors or even children, and that simply is not true.
How old were you when they gave you a double mastectomy?
It was a month after my 13th birthday.
Ultimately, we're going to talk about, are they going to give, the counselor's going to give them medication there at school without their parents' permission? I mean, I think we're leading towards an absurd and horrific time.
First of all, we weren't forewarned we would be sharing a locker. We had no idea. I turned around, a 6'4", 22-year-old man, fully intact with an exposing male genitalia.
How devastating is this agenda for children? How is it impacting their development and well-being?
I'd say one of my favorite parts of the documentary is the teen focus groups that we did, because we sat down and we talked to teenagers and we actually separated them out. They were in groups of 3 usually, because we didn't want any social peer pressure to change the way they would answer questions by having a large group. So we separated into these small groups, and the answers we got about just how badly this is affecting their generation were truly harrowing. I mean, when they got into it, I mean, some of them started to just vomit out their emotions that, you know, they got addicted to porn and it wasn't by their choice. You know, social media is feeding them algorithms all the time about their identity possibly being wrong and that maybe they're the other gender, and about things that push them toward eating disorders or things. I mean, just you go down this rabbit hole of so many different problems. And then on the flip side of that, we're sending kids to schools that have functionally become indoctrination centers where they go and they spend their most time on a daily basis to learn to hate the values their parents have taught them. And so something's fundamentally broken here. And I think that's what the film captures, but it also starts to lay out an aspirational path for parents to a time of sanity that we can get back to if every parent realizes that we can't wait for a politician to save us. A politician is not going to save us from this. This is going to be every parent standing up, organizing together on a local level, and changing things for their kids.
Well, we're seeing that happen in many states across America. Sadly, here in Australia, there is a mass ignorance about what's happening. There's a lot of secrecy around what's happening. But we are told over and over again, both here and in the US, that these medicalised interventions, irreversible surgeries, are not happening to under 18 children, but that is not the case. And I know I've spoken to victims who are now suing the doctors who removed their healthy breasts, and you also spoke to victims. One of them, Layla Jane. Let's have a look.
I initially started seeing doctors for my gender dysphoria when I was 12. So it was within that time frame, within a year.
What age were you when they put you on puberty blockers?
I was 12 years old.
12 years old, doctors gave you a drug called Lupron. This drug has been used to chemically castrate sex offenders, pedophiles in prison, but they prescribed it to you to stop your hormones. Is that correct?
Correct. At 12 years old.
Do you believe that you were given informed consent about the risks of puberty blockers?
I don't think so. I think, you know, it was spoken of very lightly. You know, I mean, they really did say it's just a pause. There were some slight concerns about my bone development, but, you know, they just told me to take some vitamin D.
Vitamin D, that's it. That poor girl ended up having a double mastectomy at 13. How could doctors inflict that sort of damage on such a young child?
You know, when I grew up, there was this idea that you implicitly trusted the doctors just wanted to help you. I mean, they took an oath to do no harm, right? And so when I went into this, you know, the process of filmmaking, that was actually one of the things that really bothered me going in, is I thought that can't have fundamentally changed as much as some of these people are saying. But the further and deeper we got into this, we realized that paradigm is gone. It is gone. It is functionally turned into a sick care system where the doctors are allegiant to the big pharmaceutical companies and to the ideological woke lunatics who are running their professional organizations. And again, this is an example of how the left, you have to tip your hat to them in terms of the deep work they have done to funnel into these organizations, take them over, use their power to fundamentally change the culture, not just of America, but of the world, because it will spread from here. You know, we cover in the documentary that these numbers are exploding here in America, but we're also seeing signs they're exploding across the West. And so functionally, this disease we're seeing here in America, this disease of wokeness, it is going to spread, and it will take down the West as a whole if we do not stand up and really effectively stop this. And that means that we have to do some hard things. You've got to be uncomfortable. You know, my family had to flee communism once already in Cuba. And I'm going to sort of paraphrase a story Ronald Reagan used to tell, which is that he talked to a Cuban refugee who said that actually Americans are not lucky. He was lucky. He was lucky because he had somewhere to run to. But if communism ever came to America, there is nowhere else to go. There's nowhere to run to. You have to be that last battle line to stop the advent of communism upon the world.
Oh, absolutely. And it's across the West, this assault against Western values, this leftist orthodoxy, really radical left orthodoxy, and it's now corrupting, like you said, science and medicine. And that's particularly dangerous because you would think those areas would be above politics.
Yeah, you would. I mean, it's kind of like, you know, all of these ideas that we were fed as children, trust the schools, trust your teachers, trust your doctors, they've all been weaponized against us, you know, and I felt it was very important for me to make this film, especially coming from a background where I've directed Oscar-winning actors, actresses, some of the biggest music stars in the world, because on our side, we lack the storytelling necessary to get these things across really well. And I think the left uses that and they weaponize it really effectively. And so we're going to tell these stories and continue this. And I'm you know, no longer having to answer to Hollywood studios. They can't stop me from going and telling these stories. It doesn't matter what they do. And so we're going to keep getting the truth out there and wake people up. And I think X, I mean, what an amazing change for the whole world that X is allowing this type of content on their platform. Because I can tell you right now, 2 years ago, I would have been banned off of every platform for making this movie. Instead, the owner of the website is, you know, going and featuring it.